from coast to coast and around the world. Welcome back. Brandon Big B is in the house today. My co-host Brandon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I've had a blast.
It's always good to have you, and we love having you by phone, but it's always good to have you live in the studio. And of course, Mallory Bardwell, our world-famous producer, is making everything happen there behind the glass. And folks, we've really launched off today into this. It's a biblical discussion, a prophecy discussion about end times, last days, things that are happening in the world, geopolitical events, political things happening, but they all tie up to biblical truth. And prophecies that were spoken of in the Scriptures and only in the Bible thousands of years ago that are coming to pass before our eyes, and we're the only generation in human history to see them happen. And there's only one place in the world that talks about them.
Yeah, the Bible.
The Bible. That's it. That's it. And so what are these? Well, very quickly, the return of the nation of Israel. It's been there since 1948. Geopolitically, it's there. You can't deny it. Then right after that, of course, we find in Ezekiel 38 and 39 that when that Israel comes back, when it's safe and secure, there will be an alignment of nations, and they're all Muslim nations, Islamic nations. The Bible doesn't use those words because Islam wasn't even invented yet, but of course the Bible hints that there's going to be something that ties these nations together. Well, what in the world could that have been 2,600 years ago? Well, we discover now what it is. It's Islam that has tied them together in a hatred for Israel. And these nations, most of them coming right out of the Middle East, are aligning themselves now. Some of them for the first time in history aligning themselves together as friends. And some of them even hate each other.
Yes, they do.
But they hate Israel worse.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about the Islam factor is that, I mean, this is just a fact. It's documented. Approximately right at 1/4 of the population of the planet right now is a participant of Islam.
That's correct.
And Mike Shoesmith has done some excellent research and teaching into this. You know, it ties right into Revelation.
Right, it does.
With the 1/4.
It does.
So, you know, and then you see the alignment of the nations, and you put those two factors together.
Right.
2 + 2 still equals 4.
Right. And not only that, but in the book of Revelation in chapter 9, it speaks of trumpet 6, a major war, appears to be multinational war, because it says there will be an army of 200 million people who will gather along the Euphrates River for what looks like we could call a World War III. Now, the Bible doesn't say World War III, but World War II had 200 million people fighting in it, but they were scattered from the Pacific to Europe.
Right.
This says there's going to be 200 million man army in the Middle East fighting this horrific World War III. Well, what do we know about the Middle East? People look at that and say, well, how's that going to happen? I mean, that would take China getting involved. It'd take Russia. It would take... No. There's 450 or 500 million Muslims that live in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
Out of that, they could easily stand a fighting force of 200 million people by themselves, when you consider that in the Muslim world, men, women, boys, and girls take up arms.
Yes,
and bombs.
That is so true. So true. And you know, it's amazing what you said. I mean, in today's world and the way things are unfolding politically, Russia and China fall right into the mix.
Sure, and so does the United States and Great Britain.
They're happening. That's happening before our eyes right now.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, 200 million people out of 7 billion on the earth, that's not a lot.
It's not.
You know,
no.
I mean...
it's bigger than World War II, but that doesn't mean it can't happen.
The 200 million man army doesn't seem so far-fetched when you look at it in those terms.
When you consider that there could easily be, 200 million Muslims that hit the streets in the Middle East ready to fight.
Yeah.
Then when the United States comes over, and then when Great Britain gets involved, then when Russia gets involved, then when China gets involved. Folks, I mean, it's very, very easy and conceivable to see that along the Euphrates River, which, by the way, begins up in Turkey, comes all the way down and enters into the Persian Gulf, and comes all the way down through Iraq and Iran and down through there, Syria. You could see where that war could easily line up.
Well, and you just alluded to this as well. You say a 200 million man army, and see, we have to remember, especially if we're tying Islam into this, you're not talking about an army of uniformed troops.
No, that's right.
You're talking about
forces,
schoolgirls and schoolboys.
Right.
And
with bombs strapped to them.
That's exactly right. And women, children, men, working men.
Right.
That is your army when you're dealing with Islam. I mean, we know that as a nation from fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq for the last however many years. I don't know, a long time. That that's one of the major problems that we face there is that you're not fighting a uniformed army.
Right.
You're fighting civilians, basically.
Right. Right. So anyway, so we're just saying this Ezekiel 38 and 39 prophecy of these coalition of nations that would align themselves from the Genesis table of 10 tribal names. They're all there. They've been sitting there for 2,600 years. Now we're the first generation in history, the first and only generation in history to see these alliances either beginning to take place in some of them and or have already taken place.
Yeah. Nations that some of them formerly hated each other.
Right.
We've said that already, but
Right.
I mean, that's just
you got to repeat
huge
it.
point to make.
Yeah, bears repeating.
I mean, throughout world history, many of these nations have hated each other and been at war with each other.
Right, but yet now they're aligning themselves and coming together for the purpose of destroying Israel. Prophecy unfolding right before our eyes, the only in the first generation. Now, we're coming up on a break, so we're going to kind of wrap this little part of the conversation up. When we come back for the last segment, we're going to talk about some of the technologies that are in the Bible that speaks of that they were only going to happen in the last days. We're going to talk about these radical cultures of death and rampant homosexuality that's sweeping the world, which speaks to the days of Noah and the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, which Jesus said that it will be just like Noah's day. And then he says it'll be just like Sodom and Gomorrah. He says that in Luke, I think, chapter 17. It'll be just like this, Jesus said. Just like this. He talks about the days of Noah and the wickedness. He talks about the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he says, now the end times will be just like this. And now, do we not only see those things in particular cultures, but now it's sweeping the world culture. The world culture. So we're going to talk about all of that, the radical cultures of death and the radical agenda of homosexuality, Noah, Sodom, and the technologies of Revelation. We're going to talk about all of that.